Welcome there everyone. Today we're going to do something different. I've been in the world of composition building for quite a while, and I've always hit my head upon stuff like I wanted to use SQF files in the world of ARMA 3, in the world of compositions, but that was the problem. SQF files have to go into your mission file, and they cannot be transferred over in a composition. So, after a very long time, I don't know why it has taken me this long, but after a very long time, I finally figured out why can't I just use triggers instead of SQF files to do everything I want to do. So, I've written out a little bit of text here on a document to make it clear for everyone, to also make it clear for myself, because I'll definitely forget what I have been doing, so hi future me. This is only to describe to you how to set stuff up and make sure that this can be done on your mission file from your compositions and whatnot. So, in this example, we will use two triggers, two objects, and maybe a door. First trigger will be the execution trigger. This trigger in this scenario is going to be repeatable. In this case, I wanted to make it so you can keep activating it and that you can keep deactivating it. As for this instance, it's made for a door. But you can also have it to only run once, and then the action will only be executed once. Why do we set the script up this way? Well, quite simple. Regular actions, as you might know, as you might have experienced, do not run globally, but instead they run locally. In order to make something public, we have to run it from the server and all clients. By declaring a public variable in the init trigger, we get to the point where this action will run for everyone and not just you. For code executions that aren't too heavy, and so long there are no more than 5 scripts being fired at the same time, you can have the interval set to 0.1. However, the more scripts you have going on at the same time, the higher this number has to be so it doesn't bog down your server and your players. Mind you, a 0.5 second delay or interval is a very long time in the world of coding. So do not set it to like 10 seconds unless you really want to, otherwise you will be waiting for 10 seconds in order for your script to fire. So you might be standing around and say, what the hell is going on? Ah, there, it finally happens. So that's why we have the init or the interval usually set to 0.5 or 0.1 if you don't have that much going on. So I have the game running behind this screen. As you can see, we have the init trigger open already. The first trigger that I will go over is the execution trigger, set as exec trigger. So that is the variable name of this trigger, execution trigger. Its type is going to be none. Activation is also going to be set to none, because we're going to be activating this trigger from an add action. Does the action need to be repeatable? Then if it has to be repeatable, then make sure that repeatable is ticked. If it's not supposed to be repeatable, if it only has to run once, make sure it is not ticked. Does it have to run on the server only? What has to run on the server only? Is it only a script that has to run in the background and deploy intelligence or something? Then you can run it on server only and let the script execute. However, if you use this script to place down a vehicle, then I highly recommend you to make sure that this vehicle and this trigger is not running on server only, but on everyone's client. Otherwise, you're creating a vehicle that only appears for you and for no one else, or just for the server and no one else. So, condition. We're going to be using the condition underscore variable. This will be a public variable and I will declare this in the other init trigger. Why can't I just run this from an add action? Well, I can, but to make it easier for people that this trigger works as it's supposed to, you want to declare this beforehand. So then the on activation field, you will run your script. In this case, I will only show you that the script will actually run, which is through system chat format activated. What this will do is quite simple. In your system chat or your normal chat, globally, group, etc., it will throw out a message for system chat. Hey, this trigger is activated. Once I set the condition to false, because first I have to set it to true, otherwise this entire trigger will not trigger. If it is set to false, it will tell you deactivate it instead, because that's the script set on the deactivation field. So the second trigger we will have is the init trigger. This only has to run once. This is to make sure that all your variables, like the condition variable, is set for everyone. It can happen instantly, but again, I always advise to keep the interval and a number not below 0.1. Any code can be around here that needs to execute straight away, for example, hiding of an object or two. In this case, however, it's only there for our public variable. We have the init trigger. Apparently I have init trigger and exec trigger. Init trigger, type is set to none, activation is also set to none. Repeatable? No. This trigger only has to fire once, doesn't have to fire every single time. Server only? No. I want it to run on everyone's client. Condition. In this case, it's set to true because there's no add action that is going to activate this trigger. It has to run from the start, so it already is okay. I'm true. I can fire straight away. On the onActivation field, I will declare my public variable like this: public variable, then quote condition underscore variable quote semicolon. This is to declare my variable as a public variable, and now I can set any value to it from any client from any location. Obviously with an ARMA in that same server or mission file. Then on deactivation I have nothing, because there is nothing that needs to be deactivated or that needs to run on deactivation. I cannot really unset the variable as a public variable. I might be able to, but it's not the point of this showcase. So then we get to the actions. We're going to be using two sets of actions. The first one to set the public variable to true. This way, this variable now will hold the value true, and this trigger will fire and will only activate or will only run this line of code. It won't run the deactivated line because the variable is not set to false, it's only set to true. Once I run the second add action, it will set the variable to false. Now it has the false value, and it won't run this script anymore. No, instead it will go to the deactivation field because the trigger gets deactivated. And now this line of code will run. It will only run once, it won't run 20 times, not 30 times, only once. So, you can also set these actions through your execution trigger. If you, for example, have a console or two and you name those consoles console 1 and console 2, a very crude method to do it. I would not recommend doing that. Use logical names, because otherwise you're going to find yourself at a certain crossroads with which console did I use? I don't know anymore. So you can have the variable names before add action. This might make it quite useful if you want to use only one object and multiple addActions on it. You can use remove all actions on the set object by removing one of the actions and assigning the new action. And you can do this all the time. So you keep only one action on the same object and you don't have 10, 20, 50 addActions on the same object. So how does this work in the game? Well, quite simple. Let's grab the game. As you can see, this is the init trigger. It's exactly set up as I just said. Type is none, activation is none, not repeatable, not on server only. Condition is true, and it's only declaring the public variable. Condition underscore variable on the activation field is empty, and the interval set to 0.1. So then we have the execution trigger. Again, set type to none, activation to none. However, it is repeatable, so I can keep repeating it. Then server only, no, in this case not. What is it looking for? It's looking for the condition variable. And as soon as the condition variable has a value of true, it will activate the onActivation field. Once this variable again gets the value assigned of false, this won't activate anymore. No, instead it will run the onDeactivation code. You might have to play with server only a little bit if you have more than one people playing on your server. In this case, I'm the only one around, because I can imagine that system chat, and I haven't played with this just yet, but it might happen that system chat, for example, will run on everyone's client, and there will be about if you have 100 players on your server, you will get 100 messages in your system chat. In that case, it has to only run on server only, so it is depending on what type of code you're trying to run, whether it has to be server only or not. So, then the addActions, eh? Here I got a couple of other addActions set up. You might see console 11 is the variable name, trigger right is my condition variable. This is what I got set up, and I will trigger a door to open and close. The setup is the same, the variables are only called something else. So, we just had two consoles, right? Now we only have one. I'm quickly going to turn off my audio, otherwise you will hear the game through my own microphone. So, you have this door, and I do not want to open up this door by walking up to it and opening it. No, I don't want to do that. I instead want to go this way and say, okay, we're going to run this script. Test 1, console suddenly disappears. That's how I set it up. So console disappears. It's a very crude way of making sure the action doesn't appear. It's actually quite inferior to using the remove all actions method. But now, as you can see, the door is open. I did it by the script and it says activated. You can also close it again, and I'm using the same trigger, the same variable, and I'm now setting it to false. Terminal or console disappears, and the first one returns. Door has closed, and as you can see in the chat, it said deactivated. So that's all to it. This is the method for now. Obviously, it's not perfect. I'm not perfect with coding yet, but it's a good way to set stuff up. If you find any issues or you have any troubles with setting it up, or you have found a better way to make this stuff work, let me know, please. Then I'll change this video about it, maybe re-upload it with the changed content, or I'll just drop it onto my public list of ARMA free snippets and whatnot. And yeah, future me, good luck. Hopefully this was clear for you, for yourself. Now you can do it again. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hopefully it was quite useful for you to know. I will post, well, actually, you can type it over. I'm not going to post everything. You can just type it over. It will be on my list. So you can find it there if you have access to it. For now, wish you a good day and good luck with ARMA free coding.